What do you do? Dream Team. It's your boy Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with the entire history of Formula One, I guess. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, get the video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Let's see what we got.
It's 1894 and the first ever motor race has just been held from the French capital of Paris to one of its neighbouring cities, Rouen. Let's set up a championship, said absolutely no one, who raced for another 56 years.
Let's set up a championship, said absolutely no one, who raced for another 56 years
Before finally setting up Formula One. A championship like no other, with fierce competition amongst the world's elite drivers and constructors.
Yeah.
This isn't what it looked like though, because unlike today, the sport first started with small privately owned teams who produced cars with little regard for aerodynamics or human safety. Mechanical problems were common, and most accidents were fatal. In fact, at any point your car could suddenly break down, sending you to an inevitable death. Surely no one's going to want to join this.
Surely no one's gonna want to join this. And then so many drivers. Nah, yeah, that's scary, right? Because yeah, back then you're not thinking about you just want to race. You're not thinking about safety. You're not thinking about all of these things. But when most accidents are fatal, bro, that's crazy that you would still want to race after that. After knowing
Surely
that.
no one's going to want to join this. Wow, it seems like people really do. And despite the prospect of imminent death, the Formula One train was full steam ahead. A governing body was set up, now called the FIA, and 81 drivers decided to race in 1950, including this man, the first ever world champion, Nino Farina, an Italian driver driving for an Italian team.
Hey.
But it's not Ferrari. Although it may seem crazy today, Alfa Romeo dominated the first era of Formula One alongside Ferrari. They drove pre-war car designs with an engine in front of the driver and ran on a budget so small it would give Christian Horner an aneurysm. This Formula One thing is getting kind of boring, said the FIA, who introduced new regulations in 1954, which hurt the leading constructors and saw the rise of a new team from way over in Germany, who wear lederhosen and eat sausage. And who are not really best friends with right now. The team was called Mercedes,
And who are not really best friends with right now.
who would go on to dominate 2 championships with Argentine Juan Manuel Fangio at the helm, before their run of success was put to a dramatic halt after the team's involvement in the deadliest motorsport crash in history. The 1955 Le Mans disaster saw the deaths of 84 people, including Mercedes driver Pierre Levay. And although no one was to blame for the crash, Mercedes withdrew from motorsport entirely for 34 years.
The death of 84 people? Jesus Christ. So we just lost control and basically the car just went into that many people or exploded into that many people or... That's crazy.
Motorsport entirely for 34 years. Moving on, are you tired of your engine being in front of your car? Do you want a new design that gains you performance and championships? Well, try the new mid-engine design coming to a paddock near you. It's the late 1950s, and after the fall of Mercedes, Ferrari and Alfa Romeo, Formula One is wide open for the taking. Oi, bruv! What's that? It's the UK, who love one thing more than tea and biscuits, and that's world domination. But this time in the
motor... the guy who love one thing more than tea and biscuits, and that's world domination.
Racing world through the development of mid-engine cars, which went on to wreck the pre-war designs used by Italian teams, leading to 5 new British world champions. Elsewhere, F1 has begun expanding overseas, with 4 new races in Canada, the USA, Mexico, and South Africa. These 2 have just set up their own private teams called McLaren and Williams, and Formula One constructors need more financial support than ever before.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
In the 1970s, Formula One started getting pretty expensive through endless crashes, regulation changes, and life insurance. But teams have just found a way around it by allowing brands to advertise their products during a race in exchange for a fee. And they would start to advertise anything that paid well. Condoms, cigarettes, musicians, and even today, sponsorship still remains a huge part of the sport, to the point where it looks like 6ix9ine just shapeshifted onto the new RB19 chassis. This racing thing's pretty cool, said hotshots Niki Lauda and James Hunt, becoming the two faces of the sport in the mid-1970s. Lauda, the face of professionalism and hard work, and Hunt, the face of cigarettes, champagne, and models.
Lauda, the face of professionalism and hard work, and Hunt, the face of cigarettes, champagne, and models.
He was a bit of a legend. The two would give fans the closest title fight yet in 1976, with Lauda and Ferrari putting up a dramatic title defense against Hunt and McLaren. Despite Lauda almost dying in a crash at the Nürburgring, the championship went down to the last race at the Japanese Grand Prix, with Hunt clinching his first and only title in the dying laps of the race.
Our new world champion by just one single point.
It's the late 1970s now, and being a constructor sucks for a lot of reasons. Formula 1 is racing in over 5 different continents, which is barely feasible for private teams. Each track controls the advertising and prize money of their individual Grand Prix, and the sport's governing body, the FISA, dictate all the rules, regulations, and commercial rights. I know what to do, said Bernie Eccleston, forming the Formula 1 Constructors Association, which leveled the playing field going into the ground effect era, which was an era of huge change in Formula 1. New technology has been introduced with the use of side pods. A Brazilian called Nelson Piquet is winning championships in both motor racing and Muay Thai kickboxing, and there are a couple of rookies in town.
Was he really in Muay Thai kickboxing, or was that just like a joke because he was fighting one of the drivers?
Championships in both motor racing and Muay Thai kickboxing, and there are a couple of rookies in town who can only be described with one word.
Hey, is that Ayrton Senna?
Greatness. Who are these guys? Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna, who started their rise in Formula 1 during the mid-1980s. Prost was simply sensational, winning the 1985 and 1986 championships with McLaren, and Senna had a driving style so mesmerizing that it actually made you forget that he was in a relationship with a 15-year-old at the time. McLaren I don't believe that these two would be a great pairing, which honestly makes me question what they were smoking out of the exhaust pipes, because instead it led to a fierce rivalry with 2 championships ending in dramatic fashion in Japan. I mean, seriously, what did they expect to happen? It's 1992, and Williams have just developed a technology called active suspension. Hey, why don't we use it to dominate the grid for 2 years? Said Williams using it to dominate the grid for 2 years, which saw Nigel Mansell and Alain Prost.
Why don't we use it to dominate the grid for 2 years? Saw Williams using it to dominate the grid for
2 years. Said Williams using it to dominate the grid for 2 years, which saw Nigel Mansell and Alain Prost win back-to-back championships with the team. Heading into the 1994 season, Formula 1 was set for one of its most exciting years yet. Ayrton Senna moved to Williams, replacing the retiring Prost. Newcomer Michael Schumacher was given a competitive car at Benetton, and Ferrari had hopes of a rebound year, with Gerhard Berger and Jean Alesi at the wheel. Oh boy, what an exciting year this will be. The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix to this day remains the most devastating weekend of Formula 1's history, with 2 fatalities in 2 days. A crash at Villeneuve during qualifying saw the death of Roland Ratzenberger, and on lap 7 of the race, 3-time world champion Ayrton Senna experienced a steering column failure at a speed of 192 miles an hour, which saw the Brazilian have a fatal crash at the Tamburello corner. This would prove—
I didn't know. I knew about like Senna's death, and that's just as tragic as it gets. I did not know there was a death the day before that as well. Like, Jesus. R.I.P. to those guys, man.
92 miles an hour, which saw the Brazilian have a fatal crash at the Tamburello corner. This would prove to be a serious wake-up call to the FIA, who believed that F1 cars were inherently safe despite the dramatic speed increase over the previous 8 years. And after the crash, many of the Williams personnel were investigated due to the belief that it was a mechanical failure that caused the crash. Let's get back to the racing now, because 1994, despite being overshadowed by the deaths of Ratzenberger and Senna, still had one of the closest title fights ever between Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill. The two drivers were split by nothing the whole season and arrived at the final race in Australia just 1 point apart. And this race would see the third controversial ending to a championship in just 5 years, when the two made contact in a crash that was potentially caused by Schumacher, knowing full well it would lead to his first world title. Despite all the controversy around it, no action was taken against Schumacher, and he would never try any antics like this ever again.
Dang.
Until 3 years later, when he did the same thing to Jacques Villeneuve, got disqualified from the 1997 championship, and was publicly ridiculed by the mainstream media.
Yeah, it looked like he definitely went right into him on that one. It looked like that he went right into him. Dang, Schumacher said win at all costs.
From the 1997 championship, and was publicly ridiculed by the mainstream media.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy 2000!
2000. A new millennium and a new era in Formula 1. The World Championship is in the hands of McLaren and Mika Häkkinen, Michael Schumacher is hunting his first title for Ferrari and third as a driver, and Formula 1 cars have a new soundtrack through the introduction of V10 engines. At this point, no driver had won more than 2 titles in a row for over 4 decades. But Ferrari and Schumacher were about to change that, winning 5 championships in a row, including 2 title battles with Mika Häkkinen and Kimi Räikkönen, and 3 years of complete supremacy. Like in 2002, where Ferrari finished the season with the same amount of points as every other team in the championship combined. Knock knock, who's there? It's an energy drink company.
The same amount of points as every other team combined? Jesus!
Who have just bought out Jaguar and joined the Formula 1 grid. Elsewhere, Renault have a superstar on their hands, Fernando Alonso, a 22-year-old Spaniard who pulls off moves which defy the laws of physics and is ready to end Ferrari's run of 5 consecutive titles by becoming the youngest ever double world champion. I want to be great again, said McLaren, who went into the 2007 season with an all-new driver lineup and a brand new plan that would bring them championship success. The plan involved signing the defending champion Alonso and an inexperienced rookie to ensure no competition in the team.
Hamilton.
What's the worst that could happen? So yeah, it turns out McLaren made a very slight error which faulted their master plan. Because instead of signing an inexperienced rookie, they signed Lewis Hamilton, who raced like a veteran from the start, sparking a number of debates and controversies at McLaren over the season, like Spygate, when the team was fined
one of the best drivers in the freaking history of Formula 1. Debatably the best driver in the history of Formula 1.
Number of debates and controversies at McLaren over the season, like Spygate, when the team was fined £100 million for being in possession of confidential Ferrari documents. Ironically, it was Ferrari who went on to win that season with Kimi Räikkönen, although Hamilton would eventually win out the next year with an overtake at the last corner of the final race. 2009, a year which shaped the landscape of Formula 1 with a new regulation change by the FIA. Used the regulations to produce a dominant car. And that's exactly what Brawn did to perfection, which allowed them to bring title success to Jenson Button before the 3 teams with bigger budgets could catch up for the next season. It's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's Sebastian Vettel, who Red Bull gave wings in the early 2010s, which allowed the German to win 4 consecutive world titles, including 2 extremely close championship battles and 2 years of record-breaking dominance. Going into the turbo hybrid era, Prime Vettel was simply unstoppable. But the introduction of V6 hybrid power units led to a new era of dominance in Formula 1 when a constructor returned after 55 years. Mercedes were back with a vengeance, producing a car with supreme aerodynamics and phenomenal engine power, which blew out all competition for several years. Although, this meant that a conflict started between their drivers, Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, in a rivalry coined the Silver War, which saw the 2 trade championships and dominate the grid for 3 years before Rosberg's retirement in 2016. What happens next? Lewis Hamilton goes on to win 4 more titles, and the team dominate the competition until the final year of the turbo hybrid era.
One of the greatest freaking years in F1, and it came down to the wire. Oh, love that freaking year, man.
In 2021, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton underwent one of the closest and most grueling championship battles in history. They were split by almost nothing the entire season. Some days Verstappen was ahead, some days Hamilton was ahead, some days they were side by side, and on one occasion, they were on top of each other. It was kind of hot. The championship went down to the wire, with several crashes and controversies leading up to the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen converted pole into race victory to win his first world title, in a race that was straightforward, not controversial in the slightest, and didn't cause the complete irreparable destruction of Formula 1 social media.
So much controversy surrounding this race. So, oh my God, this race was insanity. There's so much insanity in this one race. And that's why I always say to win a championship, I feel you gotta have the skill, you gotta have the hard work, the dedication. But at the end of the day, you always need a little bit of luck.
Controversial in the slightest, and didn't cause the complete irreparable destruction of Formula 1 social media. On a completely unrelated note, there was a change in F1's race directors going into the next season, which saw new regulations and another record be broken after Max Verstappen won 15 races in a single season to take his second title. And that pretty much brings us up to today. Have I covered every single driver and big event in Formula 1's history? No, but I tried. Shout out to Bill Wirtz, and
he's about to break that freaking 15 race record win too, man. That's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion? You can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. It's your boy D Neal. Out.